Now we're ready to get started on building our model. As you start constructing your model, your project team will want to keep our modeling question in mind, which you can find at the top left here, which is what might cause the sand volume on the North Beach to increase or decrease. To start, we're only going to want to think about the environmental factors on your list. That will give us a chance to think about how the system typically works if it isn't being influenced by people. We'll add in the anthropogenic factors later. The first thing you'll want to do is add the main component that we're studying in, which is sand volume. So you can go ahead and do that by double clicking anywhere on your Padlet. So I'm going to double click here, and this is going to create a post. A post has a few components to it. It has your title, it has a description that you can write, and then it has an area for you to attach videos, drawings, or even image searches. So I'll go ahead and create my post for sand volume as it is the main component that I'm interested in. And I'm going to go to this third icon here for Google, and I'm going to look for an image of sand volume. If you don't like the images that are being provided here, you can go ahead and modify your search bar for something else, and then look for an image that you like. So I like this one here, so I'm going to click on that, and then click back out once I'm done. Next, I'm going to want to repeat that process to add in each environmental factor that I think will have a major effect on sand volume along the North Beach, whether directly or indirectly. So for instance, one of my environmental factors on my list is a component of a wave, which is wave frequency. So I'm going to go ahead and add that on there as well. So I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to double click on my Padlet. I'm going to write in wave frequency, and then I'm going to look for an image. And I actually want an image of an actual wave, so I'm going to go ahead and change that. And I think I will go with this one here. So now, once I have multiple components in, something that I like to do is actually color coordinate them to tell me what kind of factor they are. As we are only dealing with environmental factors right now, they will all have the same color. If you look over to the legend on the left, you'll see that environmental factors are green. So to change this post to be green or an environmental factor, I can hover over it and click on the three dots for more actions. Then I can choose the color that I want it to turn into. So I'm going to choose green for environmental factors, and I'll do the same thing for wave frequency. You can go ahead and choose whatever colors you want, but if you change any of the colors from what I have in the legend here, make sure that your legend represents the colors that you've chosen for the different components or factors. Next, I'm going to want to create a relationship between these two. So I know wave frequency affects sand volume in one way, but how do I show that relationship? Well, on Padlet, something that we can do is we can go back to the More Actions button and click Connect to a post. So from component A, I know it's going to have a relationship with sand volume, so I can click on Connect with sand volume. This will create a little arrow that goes from component A to component B. If I mess up and I make a connection that I do not like or a connection that I don't think makes sense, I can go back here, click on disconnect from a post, and then disconnect there. I want to keep this relationship though, so I'm going to press cancel. Next, what you're going to want to do is describe this relationship. So how does wave frequency affect sand volume? To do so, I'm going to follow a format that you may have seen in the past. So in geometry, you may have used something called a conditional statement to describe what will happen to one component if a different component is changed. So in my scenario here, component A, being my wave frequency, affects component B, which is my sand volume. So we can use a simple format that follows the sentence frame. If component A increases or decreases, then something else or component B will increase, decrease, or vary. So to describe this relationship between the wave frequency and the sand volume on the North Beach, I would write two conditional statements that reflects my team's prediction. So I'm going to create a post, and instead this time I'm only going to give it a description. And like I said earlier, we're going to do two different conditional statements. So the first conditional statement is going to read, if wave frequency increases, then sand volume, and then whatever our prediction is. And the second one will read, if wave frequency decreases, then sand volume, and whatever our prediction is. So here I will write, if wave frequency increases, then sand volume will decrease. And if wave frequency decreases, then sand volume will increase. And because I like to color coordinate things, if I go over to my legend, I'll see that relationships are purple. So I'm going to change this to purple. This will let me know that there is a relationship between these two factors that I added into my model there. So the fact that we have multiple conditional statements might seem a little redundant or confusing for now. But setting up these conditional statements will help us use our model later to think about the complex relationships between factors that aren't directly connected to each other. So it's really important that we include these in now. As you're building your model out, you may run into relationships between environmental components that your team isn't quite sure about. For example, I think wind has an effect on wave frequency, but I'm not sure exactly what that effect is. So something that I can do is I can follow the same steps as before to add in wind, and then I can connect it to the thing I think it shares a relationship with. So that is wave frequency. I'll make sure to color code this as an environmental factor. And then when I want to describe this relationship, instead of creating a conditional statement like I did earlier, what I can do is I can create another post and just write a question. So what is the relationship between wind and wave frequency? And if I look at the legend, questions and comments are going to be white. This is going to signify that this is an area that I want to come back to once I have a little bit more knowledge and need to revise my model to make sure that I can describe this relationship. And that's about it. You'll just repeat that process over and over again as you add in all the environmental factors that you have to your model. And then use conditional statements to define the relationships. When you're done, go ahead and move on, and I'll show you how we'll add in all the anthropogenic factors.